Hey everybody, this is Marian Cowagowan.
And this is David Owen.
And this is You Show Me Yours, the podcast where a married couple talks about the movies and TV that they loved before the first date. And today, I was made to watch Halloween.
Yeah. Yeah, you were.
I was.
Halloween. John Carpenter and his love of synthesizers. Halloween is the 1978 motion picture in which a guy kills some people.
Takes his time doing it too.
That's pretty much the plot. Yep. Halloween.
Okay, so this has been You Show Me Yours. That's all we needed to say.
Go. Yeah. So I wanted to end the Spooktacular as close to Halloween as we can get, releasing this episode with Halloween. This movie was probably the one that was the most the biggest source of inspiration for wanting to do a Halloween month, knowing that you hadn't seen this one.
Well, I hadn't seen it, and I don't feel like I was missing anything.
Yeah, well, so that's one of the things actually that I kind of wanted to talk about with this episode, and just with if because this is a pretty light movie in terms of stuff to talk about, talking in general about our whole 4-week long experience. I think this movie suffers from what some of the other movies that we watched suffered from, in being that they're the first in what would become a franchise. This one in particular effectively started a genre. Mm-hmm. Some people will say, well, Black Christmas or whatever was the first slasher movie, whatever.
Because this is the earliest of the 4 that we've watched, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think there's no doubt that this movie solidified and or created the slasher genre that would go on to be sort of categorized or be like, it would be known as a faster genre, I think. And as it moves forward, it's about kill, exciting, over the top kills, over and over. And there's not a whole lot of setup. There's not a whole lot of the thing that I think this movie does well, which is a sense of foreboding and a sense of what is there's tension throughout this whole movie. It kind of doesn't. Nobody really dies outside of the intro scene, which is just introducing the concept that, hey, Michael Myers killed his sister when he was 6, and has been in a mental institution for 15 years. And that's it. For a long time. I mean, people do die. There's a auto repair shop guy that dies where Michael Myers gets his iconic jumpsuit from. Collateral. But we're not shown.
I didn't even get that. Okay.
Yeah. Well,
collateral damage. Yeah.
So but the whole time he's being pursued by this doctor who has started out hoping he could get through to this kid and has just since turned it into this kid is pure evil and never needs to get out into the world. Mm-hmm. And it kind of opens up with us following Loomis as he's trying to take Michael to what is maybe an annual sort of court hearing so that they can say, yep, he's still crazy. We still keep him crazy. He's still, a danger to society. We keep him in the institution.
Wait, are you correcting yourself because you think we can't say crazy about Michael Myers anymore?
No, I don't know.
Okay.
I know some people don't like the word crazy.
Well,
Michael Myers certainly qualifies as crazy.
Criminally insane.
Yes.
I don't know what we call it. I feel like whatever term it applies to him.
Yes, sure. He has, I guess this would be his 21st birthday.
Yeah.
This is somehow his witching hour. He is now breaks out of the institution and goes back to the scene of the crime. Yeah.
It's not clear how he got out of the building, but then he takes over Loomis's car.
Yeah, whatever happened, he broke out. Yeah. He, had probably murdered 1,000 people.
Yes.
And there are convicts just walking around this, maximum security criminal asylum, just walking around the yard when they pull up.
Yeah, I feel like that's a whole other movie. Like
Yeah.
How, you've talked about how there is sort of a redemption arc for some of these horror movie villains.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what if Michael Myers was being abused and that's why he turned bad, and then in the asylum he continued to be abused, and that's why he got out.
Yeah, I have not actually watched Rob Zombie's remake of this movie. So Robert Zombie,
Robert
Bob Zombie. Remade this and did a sequel to his remake, which I don't know if the sequel to his remake is a remake of the sequel or a sequel to his remake.
Okay.
But, we watched Halloween, but really Halloween 1 and 2 kind of go hand in hand, not unlike Hellraiser 1 and 2, where the follow-up movie is just, it takes place as our sort of de facto main character, Laurie Strode, gets taken to the hospital after the events of this movie. And Michael Myers, who, spoilers, doesn't die in the first movie, it continues to come after her, and the movie series continues. But yeah, we get introduced to Loomis, and it's sort of, for a while now, he's played by actor Donald Pleasance, who has been in a lot of stuff. And it sort of for a while becomes a movie series about Loomis versus Michael Myers. And then Donald Pleasance dies around the 4th or 5th movie, and so does the character of Loomis. And then it shifts. And this is somewhere along the way, this becomes this weird, like, familial link. And the later movies, I don't know if it's the second movie or a different movie, where it's revealed that Laurie is actually Cynthia Myers, the unfeatured in the first movie younger sister of Michael Myers, who was an infant or what have you when the events of the first movie go down.
Okay.
So that's why it's revealed that that's why he's coming to kill her.
Okay, I was about to say, because there's no explanation for, other than she shows up at his house to put a key under the mat, and I was like, did she imprint on him? Is that, kill the first human face you see? I don't...
And that's, there is no explanation for the events of the first movie in the first movie, right? There's no, because he's not absolutely targeting her. Like, he's targeting her off and on.
Right.
But when he actually decides to start killing people, he doesn't start with her.
Yeah.
He starts with a bunch of people and, that are like friends of hers, but he doesn't start with her. But there's a whole rabbit hole we can continue to go down. But first, I just wanted to, what did you think of this movie?
Well, let's see. There were a lot of jump scares.
Yes.
As you know, what was my count? I feel like I was up to like 12.
It was 6 or 7.
Yeah, it was a lot. But it was a little I don't love gore. So it sounds strange for me to say this, but there wasn't any death to like 2/3 of the way through. I mean, excepting for the sister and the repair shop guy. Yeah, there's
there's like a little bit of blood. Like, there's a little bit of blood in the sister death. There's a little bit of blood when they show when the audience is shown the reveal of the nude auto repairman.
Yeah.
In the weeds.
But that's it. But yeah. In contrast to Hellraiser, very clean deaths.
Yeah,
not gross at all.
One stab and you're dead.
No,
kind of
yeah,
thing.
and I didn't even.
Strangled.
I mean, like he's slitting people's throats, and there's like no.
Yeah, there's not. Yeah,
I was like, is she dead? What happened? What did I couldn't even see. Things are done like camera angles. Like the one person we see her death through a car window.
Yeah.
So yeah, very ungory for a horror movie. I had heard about Laurie Strode as this indomitable presence. Mm-hmm. And I did not get that from this.
Yeah, well, so that starts in the second movie, I think, a little bit more, where she's a little bit more of an ass kicker. And then, like I said, once Pleasance is gone, they really kind of struggled with how to continue the series without Loomis. And that's the point where they re-engaged Laurie in the 90s, in like the late 90s, early 2000s.
Well, I remember there was a 20th anniversary. Yes. It was H2O, where it was really like, okay, Michael versus Laurie.
Right.
Let's go.
She was back, and she had been... She was thought to be dead, but was actually back, and was I think maybe one of the movies mentions that she's like killed off screen. You know, I think maybe the fourth movie is like, oh yeah, she was killed, or something, and or maybe there's a cliffhanger at the second one. I honestly can't remember. The only thing I can remember about the second movie is that she pokes his eye out, and then they never. I think she pokes both of his eyes out, and then they never reference that again. That he's blind. Or partially blind, at least.
He's bionic after a while.
Yeah. Well, and after a while, it does become this sort of evil, borderline mystical kind of thing.
Because he seems to have super strength. Even before she injures him.
Yeah, it's kind of, I think they're playing sort of into that, like, stereotype of these, like, I'm trying to figure out what the most PC way to say it, or the most polite way to say it. People who are not fully there upstairs, being like these, like Flowers for Algernon, like the what's the Steinbeck? Isn't it Steinbeck with the two brothers? One's big and dumb.
Oh, no. Of Mice and Men.
Mice and Men. Right. Who was that?
Yeah.
Who wrote that?
That is Steinbeck. Okay. I can't remember who wrote. I was like, Flowers for Algernon. Was he strong? I just know he got smart.
Yeah. No, I'm mixing those two up. I'm mixing up.
Have you read that?
What, Mice and Men?
No, Flowers for Algernon.
Yeah, we read it in school.
Really?
Yeah. Anyway, like Mice and Men.
This is my impressed face.
Yeah,
okay.
Like Mice and Men. Like big oaf who is not all there upstairs, but is a big hoss. And I think that's kind of the idea. And later on, they play into that. Like the guy playing the Shape, as he's called in the credits and in the script at this point, even though he's also known as Michael Myers, they call him the Shape.
Yeah.
He's not particularly physically imposing. He's like an average size guy, maybe a little bit tall. But later on, they play into that, just like they do with Jason Voorhees in the later movies. Like he gets to be like 6'6", 250 as the movies sort of go on. Like he doesn't stay this sort of normal stature. But yeah, I think they're playing into this idea that he's unnaturally strong because he's not all that. I don't know.
All of God's efforts went into his body instead of his brain.
Sure.
God put in a double shift on the muscle.
Yes.
Took off early when making the brains.
So yeah, I think a lot of your observations are pretty universal about this movie. Yeah, there's not a lot of blood. There's not a lot of gore. Not a lot of people die. And it's not what people are expecting after having grown up and experienced the world that existed after this movie. People are like, huh?
Yes.
What?
It was a little like, and we've talked about this before, maybe on this podcast, I don't remember, when they did the shot-for-shot remake of Psycho.
Yes.
And I had seen the original Psycho before, and that seemed fine. Something about it being black and white, the pacing was fine. But then when you see it in color and with modern actors, it seemed so incredibly slow.
Yeah.
Probably if you showed even that version, if you could, time travel and show that version to 1950s audiences, they would still be terrified.
Yeah.
But it was just something about the black and white setting made me accept the slower pacing. But when in when it was in like, I don't know, contemporary clothes,
in modern cars and contemporary,
it just seemed so similarly in 1978. This was terrifying. In 2021, it's like.
Yeah, I mean it's one of those things, like it's a classic. Like it so many of the classic movies they struggle with being products of their time, like whether it's horror or not. Just so many movies struggle with like try to go back and watch you know, The Maltese Falcon or something, you know, some of these like movies from the 50s, Casablanca, even like these movies that are just all-time classics, top 100, AFI, whatever, but also like not.
Well, I think there's something about horror/thriller movies that relies on surprise. And once you know the twist, or once you know when the scare is coming or whatever, then the thrill is gone. Like there's a lot of, there are plenty of other movies that you can watch them multiple times and get the same amount of enjoyment. Horror movies, not the same.
Yeah.
So I think, I mean, yes, you're right. There are classics where whatever technique is not new anymore. And you're like, oh yeah, I've seen this. But it's different with horror because your expectations are so different.
Well, and also we're like 3 generations into horror as far as like it started out with movies like this that are packed with jump scares. And this movie didn't invent jump scares by any means, but did a lot to perfect what they would be in the horror genre going forward. And then you had you had that generation that were just doing like pretty straight up jump scares. It gets quiet, stinger, blah. And then you had the movies that invented new ways to do jump scares with like different editing techniques and whatever. And then we're in the generation now of movies that now like play on your knowledge of jump scares to bait you with fake jump scares so that they can get you with real jump scares. Yeah. You know, so it's like, and that doesn't happen with most movies. Like that might also happen with like, you know, what a twist, M. Night Shyamalan type, you know, like your Ocean's 11s, like there's only one time you can do the twist at the end of Ocean's 11. So in Ocean's 12, you got to get an even twistier twist. Yeah. And now by the third Ocean's movie, you're playing on the fact that the audience is expecting a twist to give them a twist, you know. Yeah. So it's become that way with horror. Yeah. Like you can go back and you can see like this, oh yeah, okay, I can see what they were doing here. Just like the same thing with a lot of early special effects movies in general, where you're seeing like, oh, okay, like, yeah, this is really early green screen or blue screen. Like this is cool. Yeah. Like it looks like garbage, but I can see I
get the direction.
This is the beginnings of something that's, you know, that I watch now and take for granted. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think it definitely suffers from that, but it is really slow paced. But one of my favorite types of horror movie is a slow moving, foreboding horror movie that is just building tension to some kind of a payoff.
There was a lot of tension, I would say, for a good half the movie. I was watching it through my fingers.
Yes.
Unnecessarily, as it turns out. In
many cases, yeah. Yeah, so, you know, this, like I was saying, there's a whole franchise, of course, that pulled up or grew up around this movie. The second one comes really quickly after the first and is just a straight sequel. And then there's the third one, which we have actually watched for the early days when we were kind of testing the idea for this podcast.
Yeah. If you're good, we'll play snippets for you sometime.
Yeah. Yes. Maybe. Or we'll just throw that whole episode out there one time.
Maybe.
The third one went in a different direction. And I think
completely.
I think that was one of the biggest losses to the horror genre, that in the third movie, everybody was like, well, where's Michael Myers? Because he's not in the third movie, because they kind of decided his story was told in the first 2 movies. But the franchise had, you know, the name had cachet or whatever, and you were in the midst of movies like Creepshow and anthology series like Twilight Zone and Tales from the Dark Side and all these other movies and series being popular. So they said, all right, we'll take this name that we've got, that people know, and we'll tell another story. Like, and this is from here. The idea is Halloween becomes this movie that comes out around Halloween every year. And every year we're telling a different story that is centered around Halloween, because the third movie very specifically is centered around Halloween. And because it didn't go, the license just kind of sat there for a few years, and then someone was like, hey, what if Michael Myers was back and there was a girl that was like his cousin, and now he wants to kill her because he kills his family. That's what he does. He's a family killer. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure at some point there's a cult involved and he's some kind of embodiment of a Halloween murder demon. Just like with all of these, it always ends up, 4 or 5 movies in, you're like, I don't know what we're doing with this. There's a cult now.
My commentary is always shrooms. Shrooms are responsible for this.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's killed, Busta Rhymes kills him one time. It's not a joke. That's really, I don't know if it's H2O or Halloween Resurrection or one of them. Yeah, like Busta Rhymes Kung Fu kicks him and kills him one time. And okay. there's one of them. He's killed supposedly, but he puts his mask onto somebody, and that person can't talk, and then the police gun him down and think they've killed Michael Myers, but then they haven't, and so forth and so on. And there's and then Rob Zombie rebooted the whole thing with his remake, which I've heard is good. I haven't heard anything about the second one, but I've heard it's on my list of stuff to watch. But it goes in all sorts of twists and turns, and he's always manages to keep finding some corner store that sells that same James T. Kirk mask from the 1970s.
Was it Captain Kirk? Why did I think it was Nixon?
Yeah, no, it's definitely not Nixon. I mean, that's the story that they tell about on set, is that they found that they had these unpainted, or they found the molds to them. And so they made these unpainted Captain Kirk masks, or they found some and they spray painted them white. I don't know what story is true. There's been several. But yeah, the original mask was supposed to be a Captain Kirk.
Is there something else that's a Nixon mask?
They do Nixon masks in Point Break.
No, like a Nixon mask painted white.
Maybe.
Am I completely making this up?
I don't know. Maybe that's the urban legend about this mask. I don't know. But it's not a Nixon mask. Definitely not. Yeah. So it does this whole big franchise thing, and out of the ones that we've watched, it's kind of the one that sort of, I think it's recovered, but for a long time it really stumbled the hardest. Mm-hmm. Like, Friday the 13th stumbled a lot in its late years. I think there was a period where it was strong when Halloween was weak, and Nightmare on Elm Street was pretty strong. Probably actually I should take that back. Hellraiser has stumbled the hardest. Like the last 3 or 4 Hellraiser movies haven't even been Hellraiser movies. They've just been other like spec scripts that they turned into Hellraiser movies. But this one stumbled pretty hard, but it's found its footing, especially as it brought back Jamie Lee Curtis, who we haven't mentioned, is in this movie. Mm-hmm. And she is in this movie. You brought up Psycho. She's in this movie solely because of her mom being in Psycho. Oh, John Carpenter was like, wouldn't it be cool if I got the daughter of the lady from the Psycho to be in my killer movie?
Except she makes it to the last reel.
Yes, she does. And beyond. She lives for many years. Yeah, and her character, Laurie Strode, dies a couple times in the series and is brought back. And then I think there's a point where she's no longer even supposed to be his sister anymore. Like, they just...
Oh, good, because I love a retcon.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, and I mean, at a certain point, if you're going to do that, you do need to just do like a full continuity reboot, because you've done so much. Yeah. You've spent 30 years building up these characters, and then you're just going to be like, whatever.
Just kidding.
Like, actually, no. She was never his sister, but somehow him with his supernatural powers, not only does he have supernatural powers, he has like practical supernatural powers in this movie, because he has been in an institution since he was 6, but he knows how to drive a car. Mm-hmm. He knows how to use the phone. He
can travel very quickly.
He's very smart about, he never runs on screen, but he clearly runs other times, because especially at the end, he manages to cut she leaves, Laurie Strode leaves the house where she's babysitting kids to go across the street to the murder scene where everybody's being murdered. She leaves there, and he manages to cut the phone line there, allow her to come into the house, and then block the back door with a rake. There's like these French doors, and he blocks it with a rake.
He's very speedy.
and also during the whole prep for this, he has staged this tableau of one of his victims on a bed with candles and a jack-o'-lantern and the headstone from his sister,
which he's been lugging around like all day.
That he stole. Like he literally broke out of jail, and the first thing he did was go and kill a mechanic guy and steal his jumpsuit, and then go to his sister's gravesite, which he again somehow knew about that or where it was.
Yeah, I got to tell you, listen. So I have been trying to find a family gravesite.
Yeah.
It has taken me several phone calls, and I have some numbers, and I fully expect that when I show up to the cemetery, I will still not be able to find it.
Yes. Yeah. And yeah.
Michael Myers is just like, boom.
He just knew. And Loomis is looking for it, and he has to get like the crotchety old groundskeeper to bring him out. And even the groundskeeper's like counting rows and headstones to get to the one, where it's supposed to be. But yeah.
Michael Myers, very efficient.
He knows it right away. He again, I guess this is his supernatural link to his murdered sister. I don't know.
I wouldn't mind some of that supernatural skill.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. And so he stages this whole tableau. He's got a guy that he kills. He cleans up everything. That's why none of the kills are very gory. So he doesn't have much to clean up. But I
appreciate that.
He sets up this elaborate Rube Goldberg machine of a guy who's going to swing down in a doorway and surprise her so that she backs up into a corner where another door falls open and another victim is in there. And, he's staged all this stuff, so he is like, I might argue that he is relatively well adjusted.
Actually,
except for the murder.
Except for the murdering part. Yeah.
He's pretty much self-sufficient. Like you could put this guy in an apartment and he would be fine. Give him a little job, like bagging groceries. And he'd be fine.
I don't. No. I know some guys who bag groceries. They're good people. Don't mess him up with them.
I mean, he seems like a pretty good guy, except for the murder.
Until the murder part, yeah, all of that.
And I mean, honestly, if they would just let him finish off all of his living relatives, then he would probably be good. Like, I want the movie that's like the sequel where Michael Myers, like, he finally kills all of his relatives. He
goes on Ancestry.com.
Yeah. But he finally kills all his blood relatives, and then he's just like sitting there in the mask with the butcher's knife, just like, what do I do now? What? And then there's just like a montage of him just like
trying different hobbies.
Yeah, like he's doing woodworking, and then he's on the beach with like a fruity drink, and the whole time he's in his jumpsuit and his mask with the unoccupied hand is still holding the butcher knife.
Tries knitting.
Yeah, knitting. Yeah, he gets stabbed in the neck with a knitting needle. So he remembers that. He's like, oh yeah, right. I remember that.
Maybe not the. Does he do a podcast? Well, no, because he doesn't talk.
No. Well, he does a video podcast where he has a co-host who asks him questions and he nods, or he does his head thing. His head turn, which becomes a big Michael Myers thing, but apparently was like just improvised. Like, I don't even know. Did you even notice the head tilt
when he's got the guy knifed up to the cabinet?
Yeah,
there was
like
kind of a
tilt.
like a dog. Yeah. Maybe he's a mime.
Yeah, he tries being a mime. Yeah, which he has the mask on with mime paint on the mask. Perfect. It's perfect. Writes itself. It writes itself. People, come on.
Yeah. It feels like an SNL skit more than anything.
Right. Now it feels like it needs to be animated to really get it to knock all the jokes home.
Okay.
But yeah, so we'll get somebody on that.
We need like a young Frankenstein type take on Michael Myers.
Yeah. Oh, goodness.
So yeah, two things that I noticed. So I also was a frequent babysitter in my high school years. These girls have a lot more fun while babysitting than I did. There's all this, let me bring my charge over to you and you can watch her while I go, boink my boyfriend. What?
Yeah.
What? Yeah. There was no phone calling other people while you were sitting. And, and I was like, so Jamie Lee Curtis, Lori, and one of her friends are babysitting across the street from each other, and another friend shows up with her boyfriend, goes into the house that the friend is supposedly at. She's already been killed. They don't know that. They have sex in the parents' bed.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they could be home any minute. What are you doing? And they know that the little girl is over at with Lori and her charge. They're like, she'll be gone all night. The parents parents won't. What? Anyway.
Well, now in their defense, they do have realistically depicted high schooler sex that's true. Only seems to last about 45 seconds.
True.
There's a great. We both kind of chuckled in the very opening scene where Michael Myers is not Mike Myers. Michael Myers, his sister is having a boyfriend over, and they're doing this POV shot outside the house, and which turns out to be little Mike creeping outside his own house. Weird.
Yeah, I was like, who's watching this child? He's 6.
Yeah, maybe he's, I don't know. Yeah, he's 6. Like, he couldn't have been out trick-or-treating on his own. Anyway, he's looking in the side window, and they're sitting there, and the boyfriend's like, let's go upstairs. And they go upstairs. He kind of walks around the house a little bit more, walks in the back of the house, and then by the time he gets to the living room where they were sitting, the boyfriend is coming back downstairs, putting his shirt on. All right, babe, I got to get out of here.
Yeah.
Like,
we're talking, that was like 90 seconds.
Maybe 90 seconds. And they had to walk up the stairs, and actually get undressed
and redressed.
So, yes. So, yeah.
That's true. That is.
And then,
there are several guys in this movie who, they're not long.
Well, they're high school boys.
Sure.
So not a lot of sort of like a Babysitter's Club kind of
no,
not Babysitter's Club TM, but like you didn't have a club of babysitter pals that were all like calling each other and bringing kids over and making doing shenanigans.
But the other funny thing, this is set in Illinois. It doesn't say where in Illinois. It's not.
I think Haddonfield's a made up town.
Yeah, it's not like all the John Hughes movies are in Illinois, but they're designed to be Chicago suburbs. This is just somewhere in Illinois.
Yeah, like wherever. I don't know.
Which is where I grew up, and this neighborhood looks like mine.
Yeah.
Like all these sidewalks and trees and older houses and, not fancy necessarily, but just, and it's nothing special about my neighborhood. There's a million just like them all over the U.S. But this was just like, oh, Illinois, I know that place. Oh, wait, except for the serial killer. I don't want that part.
Yes. Yeah. So, there's not a whole lot more to talk about. I do have to talk about the music, though. We started with it. John Carpenter and his synth obsession that he has. That he goes on to do the music in all of his other movies, and bring it in here so you can hear a little bit of it.
He did They Live, right? Because we talked about the music.
Yes,
on that.
the one that's just like we dubbed it drifter music.
Yeah.
It's just a good solid dun 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 dun, dun and then just
with
someone
harmonica
wailing. Yeah. He does a lot of this. He does a lot of this sort of heavy synthy stuff. But this is kind of like his one. Like this is sort of the most iconic one. It's been used hundreds of times. I'm sure there are rap songs set to this beat. And I'm sure there are modern day, a lot of his music is the inspiration for the sort of synth wave or like dark synth music that is sort of popular or has been popular in the recent years. This just like dark, foreboding synth music. But yeah, I mean, I love it. It's great. It's a good song, just in general. And I mean, I think it's cool that he is this director that can just kind of knock out the soundtrack for his own movie. So, I bet that he's kind of got it in his head when he's actually doing his movie, like, oh, what's the score going to be for this one? Oh, it's going to be, this or that. And that probably like helps to kind of inform some of the movie making. But yeah, I mean, great soundtrack. All of his soundtracks are great. And he's got a bunch of stuff where he just released, music that's not tied to his movies.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
And it's a lot of that kind of stuff. It's just a lot of like heavy synth stuff, but yeah, cool. I don't have a lot of cool trivia for this movie. Like I said, did you know that Michael Myers was referred to as the Shape? Crap like that, Captain Kirk mask, all that stuff. But it is a cool thing that is not a secret is that in the movie, the kids are watching The Thing from Outer Space, which is the movie that John Carpenter would go on to remake into The Thing. Several years later.
Oh, speaking of the kids, I have a fun fact.
Oh, fun fact. All right. What do you got?
Lindsay, who, by the way, is like, she troubles me.
All right.
The way like her babysitter is yelling to her for help and various things, and she's just eyes on the screen.
She's that into the thing from outer space.
Yes.
Like,
that actress.
Yeah.
Do you know who she is?
I don't.
Or who she grew up to be?
Who she became, no.
Paris Hilton's aunt.
All right.
She was also on Little House on the Prairie.
Oh my gosh.
She played Mr. Edwards' adopted daughter. The show, after the first season, it went so far off the rails in terms of being different from the books. So I will describe plot lines, and I'm just like, Laura Ingalls Wilder is rolling over in her grave about this. Mr. Edwards' adopted daughter, who I think was orphaned because she was in the wagon that her parents were driving in, tumbled over. Oh. Like it did flips. Legit. Down a hill. Okay. Down a hill, and they were both killed. I believe that's it.
She was thrown clear of the disaster.
Oh, she was fine. Yes. They were like, "Oh, you get out while we go down the."
Oh, we're going to go down this tough hill,
and you stay. Yeah, I believe.
We're going to try to ford the river.
Pretty much.
You
yes.
wait here. Oh no.
Yes. Oh no, they've died of dysentery and broken ankles or whatever.
The boat flooded while they were trying to, the wagon flooded while they were trying to ford the river, and they died of dysentery.
Yes. You should learn. You always pay a Native American guide.
Yes.
To find you.
Anyway, I caulk the wagon and float across.
That's like the middle.
That's the middle option, right?
Yeah. Anyway, that's Paris Hilton's aunt.
Nice.
And part of the Little House on the Prairie core of people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I saw and now she's on Real Housewives of whatever.
Sure. Why not?
I saw Kyle Richards and I was like, really? That same one?
What?
And yes. And she stunned me with her lack of acting.
Yes. Quite.
Yeah.
Yeah. The kids are both just kind of like, they're just kind of there.
That little boy, though, I was like, oh, man, there's some anxiety coming off that kid. I recognize that.
Yes, quite. Yeah. So I think that's pretty much Halloween. What do you think?
That's pretty much it. I did, last thing.
Yeah.
I had a little chuckle over, so we're recording this in a couple weeks before October.
Yeah.
The stores are already chock full of Halloween decorations stuff.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's like middle of September.
People treat Halloween these days the way they treat Christmas, pretty much. And these houses are, some of them are carving their jack-o'-lanterns on the 31st.
Yeah.
And the ones that have done it already, they have one jack-o'-lantern. That's it.
Right, yeah.
What a difference 40 years makes.
Well, what a difference 40 years of directed consumer...
Yes.
Ad campaigns makes to convince people that they need to decorate. Yes. They need the 20-foot Home Depot skeleton. They need all these things.
You can't. The Halloween season starts September 1st, and then November 1st starts Christmas. And
right.
I've started telling our kid, by the way, this is capitalism.
Yes.
There's nothing about Halloween that says you need 16 pumpkins.
No,
it's capitalism.
Nothing.
I'm raising a good little Marxist.
Yes.
Probably not.
No, definitely not. Yeah. So, I mean, Halloween. Oh, this is something that I you're pretty observant. I wonder, did you notice, how not fall everything looked?
I didn't, but now that you say that, yeah.
Yeah, this movie is green as hell.
Yeah, that's true.
So he's low budget.
In Illinois,
low budget
it is
movie.
Definitely brown and orange by then.
Super low budget movie. They just had to shoot when they could shoot, and it was not in the fall. And they literally just had like paper leaves that they spread around the yards to try to make it look like fall.
That's funny because there was one point where there's a leaf in Lori's hair, like right up around her ears.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is that? Is that a receipt? What is that? It's red. Why?
Yeah. So that's something that I always wonder, like when someone's watching this movie for the first time, like how much does that matter? Like, that they're telling you, oh, it's Halloween. But then the setting doesn't. Because I think sometimes filmmakers really get tied up in knots, like to the point where bigger budget movies spend sometimes thousands, millions of dollars.
Spray paint the leaves.
Or to go in and digitally alter it's supposed to be August and Mars would not be there in this nighttime shot. It would actually be over here. So we need to digitally paint out Mars and paint it back in the correct spot on the horizon.
Yeah. I don't know. I think there are so many parts of the country where it could conceivably be still green at the end of October that it didn't really register with me. I do think that Jamie Lee Curtis would have been super hot in those cable knit thick white tights if it's still green outside. I could not get my eyes off those tights. Those were some tights.
All right.
Nobody wears tights like that anymore.
That's okay. Like, you notice what you notice. But I do think a lot of times people emphasize that sort of stuff too much, and it doesn't. Most people don't notice. Most people do not. It doesn't. And even if you do, it doesn't remove your enjoyment of the movie. No. But yeah,
most of the movie's in the dark too. So
yeah, a lot of it is. But yeah. So what? What's the verdict on the Spooktacular? How did you enjoy yourself?
Some of it was gross.
Yes.
Some of it was a little dull.
Do you feel more more
educated about, I don't know, about horror?
Educated about, I guess. Yeah. Do you?
I feel kind of like I felt after you guys forced me to watch Star Wars, like all of them. I was like, I was just fine before this, and I'm just fine now.
Now I've seen them.
Yes,
that's
done.
What are my thoughts on having watched these 4 movies? I watched these 4 movies.
Yes. It is. I mean, I would say it's interesting to watch them and then hear your take on them, and you talk about how this influenced this and da 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 da.
Sure.
But I don't want to see the rest of the movies in these franchises.
Yes. Yeah. So, if let's assume this podcast makes it to the next Spooktacular, to the second annual, since we're concluding the first annual.
You know what I would like to do if we do them next month?
What's
some Korean.
Oh yeah, like
horror.
The Grudge and like
because I feel like some of them I've seen the originals of.
Yeah.
And I know there are some that I haven't seen.
Yeah, I'll tell you, The Grudge that one is.
I do not want to see Old Boy.
Yeah. I mean, that's not like. Yeah. I mean, Old Boy's not. Yeah. But it's like The Grudge and the original Ring and some of that stuff, like the Japanese or whatever Ring. I thought they were Korean. It might be. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure The Grudge is Korean. I'm not sure about. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. Like The Grudge is one of those movies. Like that movie it invades your personal space in a way that is just like, and it's another one of those things where it influenced so many horror movies that came after it. When you do watch it, you're like, oh right, yeah, like they've been doing stuff like that for the last 15 years.
Oh, okay.
But hey, this is the movie that really like was the first one where like, oh, these places where you're traditionally safe, you're not safe there anymore. That's not, it doesn't work anymore.
Maybe not.
But yeah,
okay, I think, we've got a year to decide that. So
I'm going to go ahead and put Texas Chainsaw Massacre on the list for next year for sure. So we'll figure out some others, but yeah. So I guess we're going back to the regularly scheduled program. Have you selected?
I have not.
The first non-horror.
I didn't realize until we sat down to do this. Oh my gosh, I've got to say what we're going to do next time. I have not decided, but I guess I will decide in the next couple days. So stay tuned.
So I guess that's, I mean, I think it was successful. We managed to do 4 episodes in a month, which was a little bit stressful. Yeah.
Folks, let us know. What do you think of this faster pace of an episode every week? Were you like, okay, no, you can stick to every other week. It's fine. Or do you want like more every week? Must happen. Let us know. You can tweet at us or send us an email. We are at both. We are at either Twitter or Gmail. The handle is the same for both. YSMY Podcast, YSMY for You Show Me Yours. And in November, we go back to our regular schedule every other week. But you can catch our new episodes on most of your major podcast providers, specifically Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and also Pandora.
Yes.
For some reason, we have a lot of traffic on Pandora, so check us out there. Yeah. I don't know. Is it better there? Tell us.
I don't know.
And while you're there, you can rate, review, and subscribe. We would love that. We'd love to know that we have followers.
Yes,
I forgot what else I was going to say. I think
you've done this 4 times in a short span, and you still can't remember what's left.
I biffed the intro this time, you guys. Did, yeah. I can't remember anything.
Usually I mess up the intro.
Yeah. But so that is Halloween, and that's been You Show Me Yours. Tune in next time for when we talk about what movie we don't know, but we'll see you then. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, everybody, this is Marian Cowing Owen.
And this is David Owen.
And this is You Show Me Yours, the podcast where a married couple talks about the movies and TV that they loved before the first date.
Do that again.
Yeah, I lost track. I lost track midway through.
Your brain desynced from your...
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.